Good morning. I'm Mike. 20 years at Marks and Spencer, leading the sustainability journey there across products, across supply chains, operations, and interacting with 32 million customers every year. I'm delighted to spend 15 brief minutes with you now, just reflecting on just where is the world of sustainability today, and perhaps more importantly, where it's going in the future. Now, we're chemists by degree, so I'm going to start with a very stark warning as a scientist. The world's in a bad place. We've had about a little over 1 degrees C of heating around the world on average. Now, what does 1 degree C heating mean? We're probably heading at the current trajectory towards 3 to 4 degrees of heating over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Some people have spoken in the past about 6 degrees of global warming. That's catastrophic. When the world was 6 degrees C on average cooler, it was the Ice Age, where most of us sat were under 1,000 meters of ice. Truly, life ends at 6 degrees of warming. But even at 4 degrees of heating, we're going to see a world that's tremendously different. The impact on people's lives, on livelihoods, on jobs, on the food system is catastrophic. Hundreds of millions of people impacted around the world. We simply cannot end up there. Now, look, over the last decade, governments, businesses have tried to sort of redress that challenge, to try and find a way of turning the tide on the climate crisis, and failed pretty well. Right back to 2009, the Copenhagen Climate Summit, abject failure. If we'd acted then, we'd have saved ourselves trillions of dollars of cost that lies ahead and saved tens of millions of lives. But we didn't act. We sort of acted in Paris in 2015 with the Paris Climate Agreement. It was good. Lots of bold ambitions, but probably not enough action, neither from government or business. So right now, the science is grim. The policy response, the business response has been too slow. But I want to focus on the future and look ahead where we might be. And why might the next decade be a little bit different? I mean, firstly, let's be realistic. All the bad things that have stopped us acting, the petrodollars, the populist politicians, the organised crime that have held us back are still there. That ain't going to go away overnight. But out there, we cannot just blame the bogeymen. And I stress the word men, sadly, in this case. We all are complicit in the system that we live in. As consumers, as voters, as investors, as employees, and clearly at a bigger scale, as corporations and as governments, even if we set out to be respectable and good individuals and organisations, we're all part of a failing system. We all need to step forward and do something differently. So let me just reflect ever so. I think we started to make positive steps forward. And I want to use just 2 or 3 case studies of where the UK has got it right, working between government and business to drive the change we need, and where sadly it hasn't. I mean, the first is a story of decarbonisation of the electricity grid. Brilliant story. Back in 2012, it seemed impossible to imagine that we'd go from a coal-fired system, predominantly, to a renewable system. Yet we've done it in 10 years. We've done it swiftly. We've done it effectively. We've kept bills down. We've future-proofed our economy for the future. Brilliant. And that's because a small number of bright policymakers, financiers, and corporate leaders got together behind the scenes and sorted things out. It was simple. There's no change for you and I in terms of the electrons that flow into our machines, our gadgets, our lights, our washing machines. It was done for us. But if I look at the other extreme, we've got it badly wrong as well. 29 million dwellings in the UK that are hugely inefficient in terms of carbon. Gas central heating, and 85% of them leak in terms of their energy efficiency. They all have to change. Governments and business have tried to do it 2 or 3 times and fallen flat on the face. We've just not got it right. And then somewhere in the middle, decarbonising mobility. We've got a bold goal, 2030. We won't be selling new diesel and petrol cars. Only electric, new sales, brilliant. A really clear signal to the marketplace. Car companies are scurrying to respond. People, us as individual citizens, are getting interested. But we have to put a charging infrastructure in place that people can use, not just those with the luxury of a place to leave a car overnight to charge on the drive, but the millions of people who live in flats, in houses without a drive to charge. What happens to them? So all around us, we've had this complexity. Some things that are working well, some things that are not. And that's government's role. You know, it's been generally pretty positive. The UK has got a lot to be proud about on a global scale, but it needs to step on now in terms of practical action plans to make sure that we step into a net zero future. I want to focus now very briefly on what's given me hope in the world of corporations. And let's be clear, we've got an awful lot to change. But businesses should be seeing a signal now from citizens, the people that consume from us, that work for us, saying we want change. I've looked at 160 different surveys in the last 6 months about people around the world and how they feel about sustainability issues, 160. a third from before the pandemic, 2/3 after, right through to a very interesting study that came out yesterday from the WWF and the Economist Intelligence Unit, looking at 54 countries, speaking 27 different languages, 80% of the global population, and how people were feeling about the need to protect nature. And generally, across all those studies, 70% of people are saying, we want action on climate. Even after the pandemic, 70% of people are somewhat or very concerned about climate change. If business is not listening to that signal, if politicians are not listening to that signal, they ain't got much of a shelf life. So that's a signal from people. And it's not just people talking about the abstract, the Arctic and the Amazon. They're starting to link their day-to-day behaviors. Taking that disposable coffee cup, deciding to drive, eating a high-carbon diet. They're starting to link their personal behavior with the big picture. And again, this WWF study says that over the last 5 years, we've seen an 800% increase in UK citizens' searches for sustainable products online. So people are getting interested. Again, business take notes. And it's not just the younger generation that want change. It's oldies like me as well. Now, my generation tends to sit on the sofa a little bit and chunter. Something needs to be done by someone else. Whereas the younger generation are willing to march, to buy, to invest, to work for different companies, wearing their heart on the sleeve as well. But all across the generations in the UK and many other marketplaces, people care, people want change. So citizens are demanding change from business. Business should listen. But then if I also looked at what's happening with the policy signals, again, that business needs to respond to, net zero is now a legal requirement in the UK, EU, in South Korea, and Japan, and China. The Biden administration pushing the agenda now across the Atlantic. Wherever business operates, it's no longer a voluntary nice to do. I'll do it if I have to, or if I want to, or I can choose to ignore it. You have to become a net zero business. And if you don't, if you're not part of that revolution, you won't be around in the future. But the other thing that's really exciting me now, a little bit different from the past, is I'm starting to see that flywheel of business change actually happening. People listening to citizens, people listening to the shift in the policy system, listening to investors as well. So I'm seeing partnerships. This is crucial. No one individual business, however hardworking, can possibly become net zero across its own operations, scope 1 and 2, and its extended supply chains and product use, scope 3. Can't do it on its own. So I see Race to Zero and the run up to COP26 bring the world's biggest industrial sectors together to collaborate. I see the British Retail Consortium bringing 63 UK retailers together, even in the pandemic, to work together on these issues. Can't become net zero on their own. The Zero Carbon Forum for the hospitality sector, the National Farmers Union, the Food and Drink Federation bring manufacturers together, all to collaborate on the systemic change that we need. Good. And it's not just food. I'm seeing Tech Zero bring the technology sector together. BAFTA bring the media sector together with its Albert initiative. So people are working together across those big media companies, the ITVs, the Netflix, the BBCs, to decarbonize not just how they produce things, but the story that's telling us. Look at the impact of Seaspiracy on Netflix very recently, again, fueling that citizen interest in what's going on. So partnerships are coming, that's brilliant. The second thing I'm seeing is business starting to get serious about this scope 3, this great mystical thing that lies beyond your immediate control and ownership, but you actually decide how it operates. I work for a small retailer, had several thousand factories producing goods for M&S around the world, tens of thousands of farmers, thousands of raw material sources. Now that's the responsibility of each of those individual factories and farms to change as well. But M&S can give a buying signal, it can give support, it can work together with Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose and others to make sure there's a consistent signal to all of them to say change is needed. I've seen the Co-op commit to be 100% carbon neutral for its private label food products by 2025. Good. I've seen Morrison's commit to work with 3,000 British farmers to help them be net zero by 2030. Good. So we're starting to see the changes that we need. I'm starting to see big business get interested in regenerative agriculture. McDonald's, General Mills, Kellogg's, all working to support farmers around the world convert millions of acres of land to regenerative practices. That's the kind of thing that we need, real scale change. I see the National Health Service committing to net zero by 2045. Amazing institution that's saved our necks literally during the pandemic, but also recognises that climate is not just an environmental crisis, it's a health crisis. And the signal it's sending to its suppliers, hundreds of thousands of companies around the UK and overseas, is very positive as well. I'm then seeing the rise of business responding to this consumer need. Business starting to help consumers make the right choice. Ocado is now helping its shoppers find 1,500 B Corporation certified businesses, find them easily online to shop with them, a better product from a better company. Amazon's done the same with its climate pledge, 40,000 certified sustainable products, easier to find on its website. Tesco's committing to halve the environmental impact of a typical shopping basket. You haven't got time walking around a big Tesco store to look at 70,000 different products to try and pick the right one. But you know the top 25 sellers in that store, whether it's bananas or milk or anything else, when you put it in your basket, in the future, it's going to have half the carbon impact. You don't have to worry about it. Tesco's has done it for you. Carbon labelling, I'm starting to see more of. Again, people like Allbirds, the trainers business, Quorn, the meat alternative business, Flora, starting to put information on the packs to help people make the right choices without overwhelming them. Up there in Leeds, I see Asda working with Unilever in its Middleton store to trial refill containers rather than people using single-use plastic. I see Asda helping people resell second-hand clothing, not just new clothing, but second-hand clothing in its store. I see IKEA now willing to bring back used IKEA furniture. They buy it off you to resell it. Again, closing the loop. I see Tesco's committing to bring back single-use plastic that your local council won't take back to recycle. They're taking it back in their stores to ensure it's recycled. Positive steps, but lacking scale beyond those good businesses I've mentioned. And having said all these positive things about environmental action by business, let's just hold business to account for its social commitments. Business has been fairly good in the pandemic, crisis management, helping its customers, its employees, the National Health Service through this great crisis. But then it'll slip back to how it typically deals with social issues, risk management. No kids in factories, no one dead on a building site, job done. No, we need to be as ambitious for people as we are for the planet. And again, I see very few companies doing this. I see Virgin Media committing to work with Carers UK to reach millions of people caring for loved ones at home, unpaid. Brilliant. I see Unilever committing to be as ambitious on social justice as it is on net zero in its supply chains. Brilliant. Not enough commitment from business on social sustainability, managing the just transition. So overall, I'm starting to see enough signals out there to say business is waking up to the fact that people want change, governments want change, investors want change. But it's still not moving fast enough. If I was being generous, and my kids are doing GCSEs and A-levels at the moment, so I'm going to give a little grade, I'd give us a C- for collective business action, not to denigrate the names I've listed. They're the good guys. There ain't enough of them. But there's one thing that gives me hope, that being a C- business in today means you're going to be dead in 5 years' time. And that's sustainability disrupting business sectors. And this is my final point. If I look what's happened in the power sector, 10 years ago, the good old boys who ran the power sector were chortling away saying coal's forever, this weird wind and solar thing will never take off. They've been destroyed by it. Same with the diesel manufacturers of the world, sat there 5 years ago laughing at ugly, short-range, expensive electric cars. Never going to happen. It is. And now Tesla's valuation, even though there's a bit of speculative froth in its share price, is typically more than all the other car companies on the planet put together because it's remaking the marketplace. The same will happen in foods. I mean, again, very, very provocatively. Look at a report done by Rethink X that postulates that half the US beef industry will be wiped out next decade by laboratory-grown meat. Cleaner, clearly better for animals, better for the environment, better for human safety, and cheaper. And that's when you get the tipping point to come into the marketplace. Another US startup called Plant Ag is trying to raise $9 billion to take food production out of the field and indoors, vertical indoor farms, cleaner, quicker, cheaper to use, fresher for the consumer. Great environmental story. Not sure about the social story and the impact on core US farmers losing their livelihoods to indoor machines and robots. A big part of the discussion that we need for the future. But the point being that every industrial sector in the world, whether it likes it or not, is now on a swift trajectory to be ripped apart by sustainability. And if you're selling the wrong thing, the wrong product and service, whether it's coal or a diesel car or a high carbon diet, you're going to get left on the sidelines very, very quickly. So there are the words from Mike. You know, I'm positive about the future, not about the science. I'm dreadfully scared by the science. But I think the flywheel of change has happened. And anybody sat here listening to this from the world of business, respond, get on the front foot, change your business, and win in the new marketplace. Thank you. Good luck. Keep well.